Y'all, we got to talk about these tariffs. And they've changed every 5 seconds. We've both been doing our due diligence and trying to keep up, and it's pretty impossible. But I am very curious. Maybe, Jolene, it would be interesting for you to start. Like, let's take this personally. And you as a small business owner, I mean, there's so much to talk about. Well, why don't we start there with what are your feelings about these tariffs, how they began, the roller coaster of them. I'll just let you.
So it's funny you should say roller coaster, because that is true, right?
Yeah.
We wanted to talk about this like probably a month ago.
Yeah.
And then we went, oh, it's not really a big deal anymore. And then like, oh, it's a big deal. Let's talk. And then, I mean, we've gone back and forth.
Every 2 seconds, something major happens. The stock market's going bananas. I have a dear friend, this is like, I don't even know what's going on in San Francisco, and she has this beautiful wine shop, and it's got all kinds of wines from all over the world, and he just wanted to put this 200% tariff on wines and champagne, and I'm thinking they were hit with COVID for a totally different reason.
Your very good family friend has wineries.
Yes.
Are they, I would think that this would benefit a winery in Napa.
Possibly, but I'm thinking of my friend that has,
imports
wines from all over. I mean, she has beautiful California wines too, but the whole idea, and she has an online business, is like to curate this. It's a very niche thing.
Yeah.
But certain people are very much into wine, and from all over the world. And then what do you do? Like, as a small business owner, with all of what have you been thinking about?
So we made a conscientious decision when I first started the company 8 years ago, pre-COVID, to source all of our packaging and all of our ingredients from the U.S. And that was just because I believed it was important to support other U.S.-based companies. And so then fast forward to COVID, and a lot of people in the CPG and the consumer packaged good industry get their packaging from China because it's cheap. And so packaging for us means the film that you would wrap the bar in, so the wrapper, the merchandiser that you would put the bars in and display them, at the store level.
Yeah.
And then the case packaging, then you would put those merchandisers in a corrugated box to then ship to the stores. So we have 3 levels of packaging that we have to source. Fortunately, we've sourced them from a Texas company, a Wisconsin company, an Illinois company. And had we sourced it from China, which would have saved us money, no question, it is always cheaper, we would have really run into problems during COVID because obviously all the ships and all of that, but also then we had the port issue of bringing things into ports and all the ports that were shut down during a time. And so all of those factors, when I would have retailers ask me, how is this going to affect you? We'd go, not going to affect us. We're all good. And it was just one less thing to worry about. So for me, then, I take a look at my competitors who maybe do source their products from China, and maybe they can beat me on price because their packaging, could be 10 to 15 to even 20% less for their cost of goods than what mine are. This is really going to affect them now. In fact, I just had a meeting this last week with one of our retailers who said, will the tariffs affect you? And I said, fortunately, no, we're all US based. And she said, good, because we're having to go through, like, as from a company standpoint, she was so upset that she's going to have to go through all of her suppliers and say, okay, who's affected by this? Do we have to raise our prices? Are you going to raise your prices? Does this affect our margins? Does it affect, your margins? It's an upheaval. She was very upset, and I can understand why. This is a huge thing. And she was also upset because she said, I never know. Is it a 15% increase that these suppliers are going to take? Or then it was, nope, okay, now it's not going to be anything. Then the next week it was, no, it's 20. And she was so mad that she's like, just tell us what it is and leave it so we can do our jobs. So that's how it affects us.
I can't even imagine the emotional roller coaster that that anyone is going through right now.
Yeah.
Whether you have a very strict budget in your household and you buy this particular toilet paper, I don't know, and just the prices go up. Are they going to go up? They're going to go down, versus, and people that have money in the stock market. I do. I'm not looking. It's too it's too terrifying. I'm just like, okay, this is banana cuckoo nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, and the stock market has always been emotional. Yes, there's theory behind it, but it's emotional. And right now it's just like, back and forth. Yeah. Do you think your politics influenced that decision? That's my first question. And my second question, was it tempting to go down the other road because it's cheaper and you're a new business? And
I don't think it was politics. I think it's just supporting America. And that's a great question. I don't think that it's...
Because I would support American too. I mean, that's the thing. But it is a brave choice for you, Jolene, to be a brand new business owner and say, you know what? I might not make as much money, but I want to go this way. And who knew that it was a brilliant choice on your part? Because...
Totally accidental. I mean, I don't know that it was... I would like to say it was brilliant. It was completely accidental. Well, except that I wanted it to be American, but only because I believe in American made. I think let's support our neighbors, but not in a political way. I think just. But it's also interesting because I think now it does encourage people to buy American, right? I mean, going back to the wine scenario, if you've got a nice cab from Napa or a nice cab from France, but wine is one of those things that if you can afford to buy wine, are you really? I mean,
but 200% tariffs that's big.
It is. But again, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, I don't think you're really caring about the price of...
it was just a story.
No, but it does affect that small business owner, right?
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
Absolutely. I mean,
absolutely.
That for her, I'm sure, is significant because, but again, maybe her customers now are going to discover wines that maybe they wouldn't have, I mean, that are Napa or Sonoma or wherever. So I do think the intent of tariffs is to promote American companies and American businesses.
Do you think it's going well?
So from a business perspective, I'm fine with it because it doesn't affect me.
I guess from like a worldly perspective, from the interaction between Mexico, from the interaction between Canada, from how we're being presented on the world stage. I'm very curious about what you think.
I think there's two answers to this. Number one, I think, and we've talked about this before, that is Trump doing it because it's part of his game of negotiations. It's the art of the deal. It's what bargaining power do we have? Now, so far, we are in such a trade deficit with most of the countries that we trade with that it was stupid because we don't have any bargaining power. Like, we pay a lot more, to export a product than we do to import products from other countries. And so that deficit of trade, we have no bargaining power because we're paying so much more than what we're charging. So I think if you look at it from that perspective, if you look at it from, steel and aluminum and electric vehicles and, the things that really are going to impact and I think are really impacting the stock market, it is topsy-turvy. And I think if we thought it was going to be easy, then it would have been done already. And I look at Biden. Biden took on some of the tariffs. Even this last May, Biden started additional tariffs on a lot of items from China. And nobody, I didn't hear that being talked about in the mainstream media as being a negative thing. Did you? Did you know that Biden had implemented additional tariffs?
I did not.
So I think, and I don't think I did either until I started researching this topic.
Yeah.
And so, because I don't think it was talked about. And now suddenly that it is being talked about, it's making Trump seem like the bad guy. Now, is it having an effect on our economy? Absolutely is. And there are some that say, and respected conservative financial gurus are saying if he would have done tax cuts first and then introduced the tariffs, the increase in tariffs, it would have made more sense. But I think he was backed into implementing these tariffs right away with Mexico and Canada in an effort to help with the border. And so I think all of a sudden he had to do this because his bargaining chip, his the thing that gave him some more power was implementing these tariffs on Canada and Mexico and said, here's what we're going to do. And if you don't give me additional security at the borders, then we're going to implement these tariffs. Well, they did. They both did. Both the Canadian Prime Minister and the Mexican President then said, no, we'll do it. And he was able to back them off. So again, is it a bargaining chip? Probably. Give me your thoughts.
A couple weeks ago when we were talking about this, The Daily had done a podcast episode about the tariffs in Mexico, and how this woman was an investigative reporter and talking about the fentanyl crisis in Mexico, and how it had been rampant, and it was just known that there were cookers that she was able to get in with this particular cooker and went into the lab, and she was surprised it was just like a regular kitchen, and there was just constant cooking and getting ready to move it. And this was mid-December. And then she went back. And I want to say this must have been 3 weeks ago. And at the time, tariffs were just being implemented or being threatened. They went to the same contacts and there was no cooking. This is in Sinaloa. None. Everybody was afraid. There was no production. And she pointed out that two things had happened. One, Trump was in power and threatening, and everyone was afraid. And two, Claudia Sheinbaum had just also been elected in October, and she wasn't afraid to go after the cartel. So that there were two things happening. The biggest question for her was that, yes, are the tariffs a motivating tool? And that they were, at the time, had already handed over 29 drug lords to the United States. It was really effective. But then he was still threatening tariffs. And so the Mexican government, which other governments all over the world, the Mexican government was like, what do you need us to do? We're doing what you need us to do, and you're still threatening us. And so there were a couple questions that she had. One was, if they make the deal, will the crackdown stop? Or
wait, crackdowns on what?
On the drugs.
The labs.
Like, they make a deal, and then somehow, people aren't as afraid. You're going to get little cookers here and cookers there, and it starts. And the thing that was a main question, which I think is something we can also talk about, Joe, is that because Trump likes to use the border as a reason for the tariffs in terms of national security and immigrants and all of that. In terms of the fentanyl crisis, the reason it's rampant is because Americans are addicted. There is a demand here that we're not dealing with.
Yep.
You can stop the drugs from coming in, but people are still going to find drugs. We're not dealing with the root cause, which is there are a lot of people that are sick and addicted in this country. It feels like it is presented as if we close the borders, it's over. No, because addiction is real.
But you do feel like it at least cuts off the supply. I mean, to some extent.
I think in Mexico, Canada is a whole other story. He kept using Canada as, in terms of fentanyl, and I think that the percentage was maybe 3% tops.
Yeah, it was tiny. Yeah.
Tiny. And interestingly, in another episode that we did, you had just been to a trade show, and this ties into the tariffs, and that you had said, I met these Canadians and they're so pro-Trump, and everybody is in Canada. And I'm like, really? And I knew at that time, Justin Trudeau was he had resigned. Everybody hated him. And then they put these tariffs on Canada, and this liberal prime minister gets in, and everybody's mad at America. And I'm curious, Have you spoken to those people again? I wonder.
I have not, but
I'd be
it's so
really
funny.
curious that if you did.
I know, because his whole point, just to review, was that Canada is totally pro-Trump. They love that he thinks that globally everybody is becoming more conservative. He said, watch the German elections. In Canada, it's a lot of small businesses, blah, blah, blah. And I just read an article this last week that talked about how, Canada was this, pro-conservative, and in a month they've completely turned and gone, nope, just kidding. We're not.
I mean, I think they do have, I think they have an election in the fall. Is that correct?
They do it. He tried to explain it to me, and I apologize. They don't. I mean, nobody does it like we do. But
but I think they will be coming up. I think it's pretty soon, and so who knows? Right. Who knows how it'll change back? But it certainly gave a boost to the Liberal Party. And to be fair, I don't really understand Canadian politics. I don't know if you do. I don't think the Liberals there are the same as the Liberals here, and vice versa. Conservatives. I don't know. But I think, in some ways, I understand the impulse to negotiate. The thing that was hard, because Jolene, he did a trade agreement with them in 2020 and then went back and said it was a horrible, horrible deal. And it's like, well, but you made it. And so kind of like, I know this is like a long shot, but like how you said to me on one of the first episodes, like, if Kamala had or if the Biden administration had taken responsibility, had said, this is where we are, and that you felt lied to. In the same
immigration?
It was in regards to Kamala taking over the presidency. Like, you didn't feel that there was full disclosure of like, hey, I'm not well, I'm not going to put words in your mouth. But it was like the Democrats, were hiding behind a narrative that you didn't feel was sincere.
People were running the show behind Biden's back, that he wasn't running it.
So, and I know it's a strange correlation, but that's how my brain works. But I'm thinking about Trump and in 2020, if he had said, you know what? I thought that was a pretty good deal, but we can do better. But for him to say that sucked. And I'm thinking, dude, you wrote it. Right?
Yes, but I think he's come back now again and said, all right, we're going to honor that.
I know.
And,
but it's that flip-floppy,
I know.
He's a flip-flopper. Not that, listen, I think a lot of politicians are. They'd say something and then go, ooh. Maybe I think
what happens with him is he's so open and willing to answer questions, and they have the press corps he's signing something, and so they're in the Oval Office, and he'll take questions and I'll answer them, and I think he's so open to just talking off the cuff that sometimes he says things and then people are like, you're probably gonna have to walk that back a little bit. Right. I mean, Biden, same thing happened to Biden. Biden would say things and then people would be like, that's not really what you meant, right?
I mean, I think it's been interesting in terms of the tariffs. Like, I found it fascinating the way Claudia Sheinbaum has approached this, and the other countries have not reacted, and that's been actually in their favor, versus other countries go up in arms as one would, from whether fear or anger, and that doesn't seem to go in their favor. Like it's like two bullies on a playground is what it feels like to me, where I'm like, ooh, she's a smart person, that Claudia Sheinbaum. She's thoughtful, she's trying to understand what he wants, and also sticking up for herself or sticking up for her country, which I think is an interesting concept. And that, like, when Justin Trudeau, he was pissed.
Yeah.
And I don't blame him. But that's also, if someone is a tough guy, like Trump is.
Well, okay, but I'm sure that Trudeau also is going, listen, I'm out of here. I don't care what I say, because what's he going to do? And Claudia Sheinbaum is more like, okay, I got to work with a guy.
Sure. Totally.
She's going, okay. And Mexico is very dependent on the U.S. for so many things that I think it's a different dynamic. From a CPG standpoint, getting our product into Canada is very hard.
Oh, it is.
Yes, because our product has butter in it. There's only so much dairy that Canada will allow in on an annual basis from the U.S.
They're trying to encourage dairy to be like Canadian dairy. Is that why?
Yes, and I think that and now we go back to RFK, there's also the American Dairy Association allows bovine antibiotic that Canadian products don't. I mean, I think there are other things that just from a regulatory standpoint that Canadians don't allow in their dairy that we do. So it's restrictive. But there's packaging restrictions from U.S. to Canada. All of the packaging has to be in both French and English. So that means you have all new packaging, and your labels have to be, done in grams. And so again, that reciprocity between Canada and U.S., it's a lot harder for us to get our products up there than it is for them to allow our products in here. And I think that's what Trump's trying to do. China, we've got to talk about China.
We've got to talk, and Europe, I feel like all of it. Right.
I think we have a real issue with China. Just from a geopolitical standpoint, there are so many issues with China. Canada and Mexico is small potatoes in terms of trade when we're talking about China. Just the amount of global manufacturing that China represents. China's market share is 30% of the global manufacturing. United States is at 16%. So you think of all of the things that we manufacture for the rest of the world, it's half of what China produces for the rest of the world. They have, a lower cost of goods because they pay their people nothing. They have no child labor laws. They have, all the things that make them bad actors. But that's why stuff from China is so cheap. So unless we were to issue tariffs on Chinese products, on the steel, on the aluminum, on the electric vehicles, the pharmaceutical ingredients, we are just paying China, we are paying them a lot of money to control us. And I think that is the bigger conversation when you talk about tariffs.
Wait a minute. Control us? What do you mean by that?
Because we're so dependent. We're so dependent on China for cheaper products. And so unless we issue the tariffs,
is that China's fault though? Because
no,
I'm also right.
Absolutely.
Because part of me is like, well, wait a second here. We are, as a culture, as a society, are demanding all our things, as much stuff as possible, and as cheap as possible, and as fast as possible. I think I understand where you're going. I think, but having stuff coming back to the United States is going to take years and effort. People have to actually want to do it. They have to want to build manufacturing facilities,
semiconductors, and
they have
the batteries,
to do it.
And so this was one of the biggest things that was a problem, I think, with the demands by the Democrats in the whole green energy initiatives, was to switch to solar, to switch to electric vehicles, to mandate that all vehicles be electric by 2030 or whatever it was, and solar needs to be at so many. All of the things, all of the batteries, the instruments to make the solar panels, all of that stuff is coming from China. Mm-hmm. So when the Democrats were demanding and implementing, programs to switch to green initiatives, the Republicans were saying, we are paying, dollar after dollar after dollar, or yen after yen after yen to the Chinese to get all these things. And the Chinese, I'm sure, are sitting there going, yeah, keep it going, because we are benefiting from you doing this. We and the Republicans, I know that I've read where a lot of the Republicans were saying, let's get that manufacturing and those parts and those capabilities in the U.S. first before you start mandating these initiatives so that it benefits Americans and we're not benefiting the Chinese.
That sounds awesome.
Okay, great.
I mean,
solved that problem.
No, I mean, it does. It makes total sense to me. Of course, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yes.
That part makes sense, but I think politics get in the way. And so then it's like, you get that. So maybe some people do have good intentions. I really hope so. I think you and I do. And I know that I think more than just two of us have good intentions. But to me, that makes sense. It's like, okay, that's a practical thing. And I don't know that I'm not going to say all Republicans don't want wind or solar. They're like, we need it here and let's do it here. But where it goes, it's like, no, it's fossil fuel and coal and I don't want to let go of my money. So it's really not about anybody except for the money and their interests. Like I think about what happened with COVID at the very beginning and the masks.
We're all coming from China.
They're all coming from China, and we were waiting, and it was like the poor people, the poor nurses and doctors in the hospitals were like having to like ration their masks, and we as at the beginning were not allowed to use them, and then I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm going to assume if we stay in a global way, which we're not going to go back, that we're going to start making masks in the United States. No,
right?
No. And
because we couldn't make them cheap enough.
Well, then,
So then let's issue a tariff on it so that our products are at the same price points as the Chinese products.
But the tariffs...
Doesn't that make sense?
Not to me. The tariffs then go on the consumer.
Well, does it though? Because if you're benefiting an American company, but think about this. Okay, let's take masks, for example. If you've got a mask that costs 2 cents from China, but it costs 10 cents from an American company, of course you're going to pay the 2 cents. That's been the conventional thinking. But what if you raise the tariffs on that Chinese mask so that it is also 10 cents? And now you as the consumer, you have the ability to either choose now to buy the 10-cent Chinese mask or the 10-cent U.S. mask. If you're buying that American-made mask, you are also contributing to the tax base. You're also contributing to jobs for the Americans. You're also contributing to the schools that then are being sustained from the taxes that are being generated from that business being in that local municipality. I mean, see how that all works? But Chinese products have no regulations. And so if we're only price driven, we're going to get screwed as Americans every time.
I mean, we are price driven.
Totally. But we've got to change that narrative to make it more equitable and make it make sense to buy American again.
I hear what you're saying and I understand what you're saying, I think. I think it's a bummer that because we are the ones that are going to get hit hard, those of us that are just, regular people, consumers making a paycheck and living in and going to the grocery store and all the things. When I think of like America and I think of like the land of the free, and that we have choices here, that we have choices that we don't have in other countries. And so it starts to feel, whether it's the tariffs, like it's like a bully way to force people to buy American. I get what you're saying. I really do. Like, we are addicted to stuff in this country. Everything is more. I need more. I want more. I want it fast. Amazon, like, if that
no, it's so true.
Whatever I don't know, like the dumb shit that we get at our front door, like that little cord that we need has to come yesterday, and if it doesn't, where is that thing? Right?
So irritating.
So I can't believe it. And so we are like, yes, there needs to be a shift. All these billionaires that are running the country right now, I don't think when they say, it's going to hurt a little bit, I don't think they understand the pain. Like, I think about Trump with his like meme coin. And then I read that you can sit down with him at Mar-a-Lago for $5 million. Or if it's a group, it's $1 million each. And all these things, like, that shit's not affected by the tariffs. I'm thinking, God, of course he can say this stuff because it's not affecting him.
All right. So if they would have done tax cuts first and introduced this concept, the tax cut plan that Trump is proposing is no one pays taxes who make less than $150,000 a year. Individuals. Married is $300,000. If you make less than 150 individual, 300,000 as a couple, you will not pay any taxes. If he would have introduced that concept first and then started talking about tariffs, people would have looked at it from the perspective of, holy cow, I don't have to pay taxes, because that's 93% of Americans. 93% of the U.S. makes less than 150 individual, 300 as a couple. So if 93% of the Americans looked at that and said, I'm not going to have to pay taxes, that is money in my pocket. And then they would have said, now we're going to introduce these tariffs. And they'd say, well, that's okay because it's going to even out. I'm going to save $15,000 a year, or I'm going to now all of my cost of goods on everything is going to go up, but I'm supporting American businesses and I'm supporting my neighbors who are working. That ideally, that would have been a beautiful MAGA moment.
Oh my God.
But it didn't happen that way.
No, it didn't. No, it didn't.
But does that make sense? Is that something that you would get on board with?
I am not into tariffs. I think that's a wonderful idea that people under, like, individuals that don't make more than $150,000 don't get taxed. What about the super rich people? I have an issue with how little tax they pay. What do you think about that?
I agree. But I also think...
Because I feel like the middle of us get hit the hardest.
Right. Yep. And so you look at it was Warren Buffett who said that, he pays less than his assistant does.
I like
him.
And
that was, I do too. He's so smart. I love him. I mean, I really do. And Bill Gates and, George Soros. I mean, you look at you want to talk about billionaires that run the United States.
I want them all to get taxed. I don't care.
They all should be taxed, right?
Absolutely.
Let's tax the wealthy.
They're not going to even feel it, Jolene.
We could get into a whole tax thing. Yes, we need to get rid of the loopholes that allow the super rich to not pay their fair share.
Yes.
But if you actually look at how much the 1% of the top 1% of earners in America pay over 50% of the tax as it is right now.
Do you have an idea where you might have gotten that?
Okay, here's a new one called USA Facts.
For those of you listening, it's USA FACTS, USA Facts, making government data make sense. No partisanship, no bias. Hashtag just the facts. Look at you, Jolene.
Look at that. This is taxfoundation.org.
Okay.
Latest federal income tax data. It says the top 1% earned 22.4% of the total AGI and paid 40.4% of all federal income taxes.
Thank you for checking. I think it's important.
Right, because again, this goes back to the narrative that, the rich don't pay their fair share. To be in the top 1% of earners in the U.S., you generally need to make around $787,000 a year. And that can vary significantly from state to state.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any money in the stock market?
Yeah.
I don't really like it right now.
Oh, I mean, we don't look. And especially with Jeff being retired.
You can't look.
You
can't look. I mean, I can't imagine the people, because I live across from the stock exchange. Not that they're actually there anymore, but their little hearts, like, I can't imagine what it's doing to their nervous system. To go up and down and be responsible for people's money and the amount of pressure, and no one knows what's happening. Like, it literally changes all the time. Right now, are you feeling like, okay, like, are you believing the narrative of we need to hang tight because it's just going to be painful before it rights itself?
I have to trust that they know what they're doing, and not just Trump, but his financial advisors and his, Secretary of Commerce and, Treasury Secretary. And I mean, all the, this isn't just a Trump thing. I mean, this is everyone working together to work out the details and make this work. You have to trust that it is going to work. I don't think it's a knee-jerk reaction. I don't think it's a fly-by-night. I don't think it was Trump going, you know what we should do? We're gonna raise the tariffs. I mean, I don't.
I love that he's got your Southern accent.
I don't know how he had a Southern accent back there.
I'm like, okay. But what about all, like, there's a lot of conservative economists that are not in agreement with this. What do you think about that?
I think that they wish that the tax cuts would have happened first and then the tariffs happen later. And who knows? Again, this could be the art of the deal. It could be a negotiation tactic, or it could really be
it feels like it to me.
I do think that the Chinese tariff thing, I am all for. I absolutely all for. I think China is our greatest geopolitical threat. Do you think that?
Oh, gosh.
I mean, more so than Russia or the North Koreans or the Iran.
I think it's, they're all a combination and they're all partnering together, which I think that's the scariest part. I mean, we're going into another conversation or an old conversation, but, China is incredibly smart, and they're now, I hate the word soft power, but it's what's used. Like, they're going into Africa and they're helping countries that we've pulled out of, and that's an issue. Of course, kumbaya over here. I want the world. I want us to be buddies with the Chinese. I want us to figure out, wouldn't that be nice? I know that it's totally, completely off the rails, but wouldn't it be nice if all the countries got along?
That would be beautiful, my friend. This is a great conversation.
Yes, it was a start, you guys. Listen, tariffs are big, and they're going to keep going. So we might come back to this conversation, right?
Yes, because it may change tomorrow.
That's right. Do you want to do a good for the soul and then head into the would you rathers? All right.
Yes, please.
What's your good for the soul, my dear?
Mine is peaches and diesel.
What is that? Is it an Instagram thing?
The Instagram, yes. So it's peaches, then it's the letter N, peaches, N-D-I-E.
Oh, I see this.
S-E-L, and then is it 104? Maybe it's peaches and diesel 104.
Yes, it is.
She is just funny and lighthearted, and she does funny things, and she's an empty nester now, and her kids are all off, and she's just funny, and I love to watch her.
You follow her. It says unfiltered musings, so I can hear myself talk. You follow her, and Dr. Marie Claire, who I love. The menopause doctor follows her. And now I follow her.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, who's yours?
Well, I don't know if I think we might have, in our friendship, talked about this man. Other than you, he's my favorite Christian. Do you know James Tallarico? It's James, James. His last name is Tallarico, Tallarico, James Tallarico. And he's a Texas state representative, a former middle school teacher. He's a proud progressive and an 8th generation Texan. He is so measured. He is so smart. He is so pro-human and articulate and heart forward. If he says he's a Christian, he lives it.
Oh,
I think you would like him for that reason. And the way he defends himself or articulates, he is not a screamer. He speaks from the heart. And if he's actually dealing with another Christian, he might say, hey,
Calls
I know yes, but in a very gentle way.
Yeah.
Which is you listen to him. So I thought you would appreciate him, and other people would appreciate him as well.
My friend Brooke follows him, and my friend Sheila follows him. So, and you. And so now I'm going to.
There you go. Right on.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you ready, lady?
Yes.
Would you rather have universal respect or unlimited power?
But if I had unlimited power, couldn't I make everyone respect me? Okay, so is it me? Is it me personally?
It's you personally. I know I had to answer it myself. I was like, oh, this is a good one.
It is a good one. I am so proud of you.
Thank you.
I got to go with the respect thing. I mean, if everybody respects you, then doesn't that give you the power?
I'm with you, sister.
Is that the way you thought of it?
It is. Then I was like, ooh, unlimited power. I could make you respect me.
Right?
But no, I think ultimate respect, I mean, universal respect. Listen, I'm such a fucking people pleaser. Well, if you had universal respect, you might actually get what I want, which is all the world to get along.
To get along.
Free to be you and me, baby. Global, free to be you and me. Totally. My Lord.
Okay. Yours is very sweet and kind and deep. Mine is not.
Perfect.
Would you rather eat a brownie with a little bit of dog poop in it or a cookie with a crushed up cockroach?
I would take the crushed up cockroach any day. I've been in Mexico City. I've had like grasshoppers and ants, and they're actually quite good. No dog poop for this girl. Hells to the no, no, no. Hells to the no, 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 no.
Okay. All right then.
Done and dusted, girl. Blech.
That was easy for you.
That was so easy. Give me that cockroach any day. I think they have protein. Cockroach. Give me that cockroach any day. I think they have lots of protein in it. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank you,
Thank you, friend.
All right. I'll see you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.